Hello everyone, my name is Seraphi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we are going to continue the Duel Links prediction series. This time we're going to be talking about Traptrix. So I did one of these for Sky Strikers. Traptrix is coming to the game. Most people don't know anything about them. So it's going to be fun to talk about these cards and go over the different Traptrix monsters and trap cards that we might be seeing. So Traptrix monsters are pretty unique because they have synergy with cards that existed way before they came out. Traptrix monsters have explicit synergy with normal trap cards that have the word hole in their name. And there are a lot of those cards. Chain Hole, Gravedigger's Trap Hole, Network Trap Hole, Floodgate Trap Hole, Bottomless Trap Hole, Treacherous Trap Hole. There are a lot of trap hole cards that all do very similar things. Most of them activate in a specific instance when something triggers them, and when they are triggered, they damage your opponent's board in some way. These cards all have really powerful effects, but they don't typically gain you a whole lot of advantage. They're more about putting advantage away from your opponent. So these cards didn't typically see a whole lot of play until Traptrix came out, and then Traptrix, because they have effects that explicitly allow you to add these cards to the hand, or recycle them from the graveyard, now these cards could potentially give you a significant amount of advantage. So they became useful in this one archetype. And the best part is, we have a lot of these cards in Duel Links already. So since even though we only have a few Traptrix cards, we have a whole lot of hole cards. So you might find a lot of things in your collection that could be useful to you that you didn't expect. So let's go over it. So we are not getting any of the Link monsters, I don't think, because the skill explicitly states that you can only have Xyz monsters in your extra deck. So it wouldn't make sense for them to give us a skill and then give us the Traptrix Link monsters. So we can assume that Sarah and Kularia and Oedipus are not coming. That said, there are other cards that we could see. So let's go over those. The cards that we already have in Duel Links were in the Secret of Ancients pack, and it's Traptrix Atrax, Traptrix Dionaea, and Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. So Traptrix Atrax, level 4 Earth Insect. This card is unaffected by the effects of hole trap cards. You can activate whole normal traps from your hand. The activation of your normal trap cards activated on your side of the field cannot be negated. All those effects are pretty good, but Traptrix Atrax is not considered to be a very good card because it doesn't have a whole lot of acceleration. The card itself is fine. It's a good card standalone, which is why it was released by itself, basically. But if you play it in a dedicated Traptrix deck, it doesn't advance your Traptrix strategy in any meaningful way. It's a card that benefits from other cards summoning it or searching it, but it doesn't search or summon itself. So maybe you can play it as a one-of, as a target for some other card to draw, especially since the skill can let you summon it from the hand for free. But I don't foresee that being the case too much. The other Traptrix monster that we have is Traptrix Dionaea. This is a level 4 plant earth monster, unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. When this card is normal summon, you can target one Traptrix monster in your graveyard, special summon that target in defense position. When this card is special summon, you can target one whole normal trap card in your graveyard, set that target, but banish it during the end phase of your next turn if it is still on the field. You can only use this effect once per turn. So I like that. Traptrix Dionaea is a cool card that allows you to get your Traptrix monsters back so that you can Xyz summon, or if it's special summon instead of being normal summon, you can actually add a trap card back to your field, but you have to use it. You can't just sit on it. And that's kind of the idea of Traptrix. They really accelerate using a bunch of trap cards, but you have to actually play the card to get advantage out of them. So, and the good news is the trap cards are like all really good, really easy to use, so that's fine. This card will probably see play, absolutely. It's interesting that they gave us this card, which explicitly has synergy with only Traptrix monsters, when they only gave us one other Traptrix monster in the game. So check in and see if you have these cards. They're both decent, and you will probably play maybe 2 copies of Dionaea, maybe 3. The trap card is called Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. When a monster that was special summoned this turn activates its effect on your opponent's field, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. Cool. You've seen how powerful negate and destroy effects are. You see that with cards like Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon and Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Both those cards have seen meta play at certain points. Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is another card that is very good, The main problem with Traptrix Trap-Hole Nightmare up until this point is that it hasn't been searchable. But with the Traptrix cards coming out, it should be searchable, and the skill also lets us search for a whole normal trap as well. So if you really want this card, you can add it to your hand from the skill. So I do think that this card will start to see more play coming forward. If you have this card, it's a valuable card to have. Alright, those are all of the Traptrix cards that we already have. Let's talk really quick about the whole traps that we already have. We have Treacherous Trap Hole, which is explicitly mentioned in the skill. If you have no trap cards in your graveyard, target 2 monsters on the field and destroy those targets. Now you might think this card wouldn't really see play in a trap deck because of course you're going to have traps in your graveyard, but you already saw that Traptrix do have ways to banish and add trap cards from their graveyard to the hand, so Traptrix actually recycles their trap cards a lot. It is possible that you will just have Treacherous Trap Hole and be able to use it if you hold on. Floodgate Trap Hole. Sadly, this card is limited to 3. Hopefully, the release of Traptrix will be the point that Konami decides, let's unlimit this card, because it's not good. But regardless, when your opponent summons a monster or monsters, change those cards to face down defense position, and monsters changed to face down defense position by this effect cannot change their battle positions. This is a really good card. It sees play in Altergeist. Madolches can use it as well, because Madolches are bad and they don't really have any good ways to stop themselves from being killed. So Floodgate Trap Hole is a card that will see a lot of play, and it's not once per turn, which is the biggest benefit of it. Bottomless Trap Hole. When your opponent summons a monster with 15 or more attack points, destroy those monsters, and then if you do, banish them. So again, this is just like Floodgate Trap Hole. If your opponent pendulum summons and summons 5 monsters at once, you can destroy all of them if they have 1500 or more attack points. So Bottomless Trap Hole is completely unlimited. It's really, really good. It has a lot of synergy with the Traptrix monsters. If you have 3 copies of this card, I would probably play 3 copies of this card. It's great. Trap Hole of Spikes. When your opponent's monster that was normal or special summoned this turn declares an attack, destroy that monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equals to a quarter of the original attack of that monster. So Trap Hole of Spikes is an interesting card. You might think this card is not good enough, but it's actually interesting because you can play it with Rafflesia, which we're going to talk about. So because this card can be activated off of Rafflesia, you might play it in the deck as a one-of, and we'll get there. Trap Hole. When your opponent normal or flip summons a monster with 1000 or more attack, target that monster and destroy that target. This card would actually be pretty good if it didn't target, but because it targets, it's really annoying. I don't think this card will see too much play. A lot of decks do need their normal summons, but they're just better options. Chain Hole. When your opponent activates a monster effect in response to a card or effect activation, negate that opponent's effect, then your opponent can banish 1 card from their hand or deck with the same original name as the negated card. If they didn't, you can banish 1 random card from their hand. So that's a hilarious effect, and it allows you to punish decks that activate monster effects that basically negate cards. So for example, Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon. Your opponent tries to negate one of your cards, they've activated a card in response to your card, you activate Chain Hole, you negate the Dark Requiem's effect, you get to use your original effect, and then your opponent has to banish a copy of Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon from their hand or their deck. But they can't, because it's an extra monster. So instead, they just lose a card. Really, really funny. Again, because it can be activated off of Rafflesia, it's kind of interesting as an option. Maybe a one-of. Network Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster from the main deck or the graveyard, banish it face down. That's amazing. That is a fantastic card, and I am surprised it doesn't see more play these days. So, it depends on the meta. Obviously, there are skills that summon from the deck now, so a little bit harder to justify, but a lot of decks do special summon from the graveyard in particular, and banishing those monsters face down does hurt a lot. We are still in a zombie-adjacent meta, so yeah, I would definitely consider this card, especially you can use it against Phantom Knights. It's pretty good. Void Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster with 2000 or more attack, negate the effects of one of those monsters with 2000 or more attack, and if you do, destroy it. Great. Fantastic card. The monster doesn't have to activate an effect for you to negate the effects, but it will negate the effects regardless. So, for example, if you destroy your opponent's Elemental Hero Neos Kluger, its effects are negated, so it does not get to... Void Trap Hole is a weird card. I'm pretty sure the card doesn't get to activate any effects if it's destroyed. I haven't used the card in a long time. This card is in a selection box, and it's in a Red Eyes pack. I didn't go into this box because I already had all the Red Eyes cards, but if you guys have it, it's a great card. And then the other ones are all bad, except for maybe Giant Trap Hole. When 2 or more monsters are special summoned at the same time, destroy all monsters on the field. Now, this card is considered to be kind of mid just because it hurts yourself, but Traptrix are unaffected by Trap Holes for this reason. So you can play Giant Trap Hole, actually, and if your opponent tries to summon monsters to take you down, it doesn't hurt your board to blow up the field. So that's pretty good. Okay, those are the cards that we already have in the game. Now let's talk about the cards that we don't have in the game. One of these starters is Traptrix Nepenthes. This is a level 4 Earth plant monster, unaffected by whole normal trap cards. If you activate a whole normal trap except during the damage step, you can add to your hand or special summon one Traptrix monster from your deck. You can only use this effect once per turn. So Nepenthes is a very powerful card. Because you get to summon this card for free because you have the skill, you can play this card in defense position and then pass to your opponent, and then you can just allow yourself to special summon any monster from your deck, and that monster might have an effect that triggers when it's special summoned, like your Dionaea, and then you could potentially get more value out of activating a trap card. So this is part of the reason why the skill allows us to play a monster from the hand instead of getting an additional normal summon. A lot of the Traptrix monsters have very poor stats, but very good effects on the board. So being able to essentially special summon them from the hand in defense position for free is really, really good. Then we have Traptrix Mantis. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Traptrix monster from your deck to your hand, unaffected by the effects of whole normal traps. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target one set spell or trap you control, return that target to the hand, then you can set one spell or trap from your hand. It's really good. So targeting a set spell or trap you control and returning it to the hand, you might think that's kind of a weird effect, but in Duel Links in particular, this will be really, really strong, because you can use it to essentially dodge MST. Your opponent tries to MST you or Cosmic you, okay. Target the card, return it to the hand, then set the same card. You don't have to have a card in your hand to activate this effect because it's a can effect. It says you can set one spell or trap from your hand. So you don't have to do that. Therefore, you can just bounce any card even if your hand is empty and then set the same card and then you dodge any sort of removal. So Mantis, really great searcher, really great protection for your spells and traps. Love it. Then we have Traptrix Vesiculo, level 4 Earth Plant, unaffected by the effects of whole normal traps. You can only use one of the following effects of Traptrix Vesiculo per turn, and only once that turn. You can send one set trap card that you control to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. Sweet. That's a really good effect. If you control no cards in your spell and trap zone, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one whole normal trap card in your graveyard, and set it to your field. Okay. So that part is more likely to occur in Duel Links than you might think, because you start out with so few cards that it is possible that your opponent is just going to run you out of trap cards. So being able to banish a card to essentially replay one of your trap cards will be very beneficial, especially if it's a card like Giant Trap Hole or like Void Trap Hole that has a huge impact on your opponent's board, which most of these do. So Vesiculo, really solid card. The ability to special summon it from the hand is less good because we can already special summon it with the skill, but that does mean that essentially you can play this card as it's intended without going minus by getting rid of your spell traps. So, solid nonetheless. Traptrix Myrmeleo. This is probably the one that I'm most confident is going to come to the game. Level 4 Earth Monster Insect. This card is unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one whole normal trap from your deck to your hand. And if this card is special summoned, target one spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy that target. Okay, so your Dionaea can special summon this card, your Nepenthes can special summon this card. Destroying spells and traps is very common in Duel Links. It's a very good thing to do. So I imagine this card's probably going to be a UR because it's going to be valued so highly, and this card will probably be used to kind of push the strategy of Traptrix in general. Being able to add any whole normal trap card to your hand is just solid. This card basically replaces itself and gets you value. You're going to see, essentially, Traptrix, no matter what their opening hand is, summoning Rafflesia, setting 3 and passing almost every game. And that's going to be really, really annoying for a lot of players, but it's still going to be extremely good. We also have Traptrix Genlisea, unaffected by the effects of whole normal traps. You contribute this card to set 2 whole normal traps with different names, one from your deck and one from your graveyard, but banish them when they leave the field. You can only use this effect once per turn. I mentioned this in the Skill League video, but this card is extremely good with the skill because the skill essentially lets you bypass priority. When you play a card from your hand with the skill, your opponent doesn't get to react to your monster being summoned. Normally, Konami has gotten around this recently by having us play monsters face down. The Phantom Knight skill has a set the Dark Rebellion Exceeds Dragon. The Raid Raptor skill has a set the Raid Raptor monster. This skill does not do that. As you know, it's a leak. It could be changed, but so far, it has not indicated that we will be playing this card face down, which means Genlisea will essentially be uninteractable, because as soon as you use the effect, the monster is tributed. You can't effect Veiler it. You can't imperm it if we ever get imperm. You can't forbidden droplet it. The only thing that you could do is negate a monster effect that you can negate anywhere, like for example with Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, and the monster's already off the field, so you've lost half the value by doing that. If you negate an effect when a monster is not on the field, you don't get to destroy the monster. You have wasted your effect most of the time. So this is a very, very powerful card. I imagine this card will be pushed pretty heavily as well. Being able to set a trap from your deck and your graveyard is really, really strong, and because they banish themselves when they leave the field, it also allows you to play Treacherous Trap Hole more easily. So, Genlisea, probably a safe 2-of. Traptrix Holutea. You can activate this card the turn it was set by discarding a normal trap. Fair. Special summon this card in defense position as a normal monster, a plant earth level 4 with 400 attack and 2400 defense points. This card is not treated as a trap card while it's on the field. You could banish this card from your graveyard, target one Traptrix monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. You can only use one Holutea effect per turn, and only once that turn. So this is a very, very powerful effect. Being able to special summon a monster from your graveyard, when a lot of the Traptrix monsters have effects that trigger when they're special summoned, is really, really strong. And this card also lets you get more easy access to Xyz plays. And yes, the skill does give us the ability to summon another monster from the hand, which might be an indication that we're not getting Holutea. But it also could be an indication that they want us to be able to summon 2 Xyz monsters in the first turn. And if they do, then Holutea is going to be absolutely necessary. So if this card comes, it will probably be a super rare, and it will probably be a very good card. So I'm looking forward to seeing Holutea kick into high gear. The other Traptrix monsters that we have Traptrix Arachnocampa. This is a level 4 Earth Insect, unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. The first time each set card in your spell and trap zone would be destroyed by a card effect each turn, it is not destroyed. That is really good for us. If that card comes, we will be able to protect all of our spells and traps. And again, you just play this card in defense position with your skill, pass the turn, your opponent has to destroy it in battle essentially, or remove it from the field some other way. By the time they've done that, they've eaten all your traps, so it doesn't matter. During the main phase, if you control a Traptrix monster as a quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except insect or plant monsters. Okay, so you can special summon this card from your hand as a quick effect, which means that if your opponent tries to MST one of your cards, and you have a Traptrix out, you can special summon Arachnocampa in response to that, and then Arachnocampa will just make it so that that card can't be destroyed, and the effect will resolve doing nothing. So this is a really, really powerful hand trap. This card's probably not coming. I'm going to be honest. If this card comes, then I don't know what the intended counterplay of what we're supposed to do against Traptrix. This card will probably make Traptrix too powerful in Duel Links. So I don't foresee this card coming. This card will probably be released later with the Link support. The other monster is Traptrix Pudica. This is a level 4 plant earth monster with 900 attack points and 1900 defense points. Unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. You can only use each effect of Traptrix Pudica once per turn. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Traptrip Garden from your deck to your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls and banish it. Also, during the next standby phase, your opponent can special summon one of their banished monsters. Okay. That effect probably sounds pretty familiar to a lot of you guys. It sounds a lot like Farfa of the Burning Abyss. It's different than Farfa of the Burning Abyss, though. So Farfa returns the monster that was banished to your opponent's field. Pudica lets your opponent choose any monster that is banished and special summon it after the effect is activated. And you banish a lot of cards, like with your Bottomless Trap Hole. So it's entirely possible that you are walking into a trap of your own when you use this card. Just keep that in mind. But it can get you lethal, being able to get rid of one of your opponent's monsters. So definitely keep it in mind. Now, the problem with Pudica is it explicitly references another card. So if we're not getting Garden, then we're definitely not getting Pudica, because they won't have a card in the game that references another card if the card's not also in the game. That doesn't make any sense. So Pudica and Traptrix Garden are like a package deal. Either we get them both or we don't get them both. Traptrix Garden is the field spell. And yes, they have a field spell for some reason. They have no other spell cards. Only a field spell and traps. Traptrix Garden, during your main phase, you can normal summon a Traptrix monster in addition to your normal summoner set. I really don't think we're getting this card, because we got basically this effect on the skill. So I feel like the skill is supposed to represent Traptrix Garden. and because of that, we're not getting it. The first time each insect or plant monster you control will be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. You can banish one monster you control, special summon one Traptrix monster from your hand or graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. So, that is a gross card. Being able to banish a monster you control, special summon a Traptrix monster from your hand or graveyard will be very, very powerful. You can use this card on trap monsters if you want to play trap monsters like Phantom Knight's cards. You can use this on your opponent's cards. You could play Mind Control and banish your opponent's monsters to summon your Traptrix monsters from your graveyard. That's a useful effect. I really don't think this card's coming. It's a really, really good card. But if you combine it with the skill, it essentially means that you get 3 normal summons every turn, which is way too much, especially since it's searchable. So yeah, Pudica and Traptrip Garden probably not coming. And then the Link monsters are all really good, but I don't feel like talking about them when we know that they're not coming. Okay, so that is the... Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the Xyz monsters. What am I doing? What am I doing? Let's talk about the Xyz monsters. Okay, so rank 4 Traptrix Pinguicula requires 2 level 4 monsters. It is an earth plant with 2,500 attack points and 300 defense points. While this card has material, it is unaffected by traps and the activated effects of other monsters with the same type as this card's material. That is one heck of an effect. So, okay. You will obviously mostly make this card with an insect and a plant monster. So you're already dodging 2 types of monsters. Now those 2 types of monsters, not too common. But you can only use each of the following effects of Traptrix Pinguicula once per turn. You can attach 1 material from this card, add 1 Traptrix monster from your deck to your hand. That's insane. If a monster owned by your opponent is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can attach one of those monsters to this card as material. So, let's say that your opponent, maybe they special summon their Red Dragon Archfiend, and you flip over your Bottomless Trap Hole, and Red Dragon Archfiend is now banished. Well, Pinguicula activates its effect, and it will attach Red Dragon Archfiend to itself as material. Not only does your opponent now not have access to that card, but now Pinguicula is completely immune to the activated effects of all dragon monsters. And your opponent's playing Red Dragon Archfiend, they probably have a lot of dragon monsters. So Pinguicula is toxic. This card is gross. The problem is, I really don't know that this card's going to come or not. It's a new card. It's fairly new. But at the same time, if this card is not coming, and we're not getting the Link monsters, Traptrix doesn't really have like a strong win condition. And I don't think Konami wants to make a stall deck. I don't think they want to make like a stall drag-out deck. Rafflesia does not have a very powerful offense, so if the goal is just to summon Rafflesia and sit on it in defense position, that's going to be a boring game. I feel like Pinguicula is probably going to come just to give us a way to win the game. I don't want it to. I would rather have Oedipus than Pinguicula. Believe me, I would much rather have Oedipus. That's a much better boss monster. It's a lot more fair. But yeah, I can't see it because the skill just straight up says that we can't play Link monsters. So there you go, guys. Then we have Traptrix Allomerus, which requires 2 or more level 4 monsters. This is the Insect Xyz monster for Traptrix. It's rank 4 with 2,200 attack points and 600 defense points. This card is unaffected by traps while it has Xyz materials. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You can attach 2 materials from this card to special summon 1 level 4 or insect or plant monster from your graveyard. It's pretty good. So this card will allow you to basically revive one of its materials and then trigger its special summon effect. Solid. If an opponent's monster leaves the field because of your card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can detach 1 material from this card, target one of them, and special summon it to your field. Now that is a win con. So, just like how Pinguicula lets you steal monsters as material, Allomerus lets you steal monsters as beat sticks. It does not negate their effects. It does not prevent them from attacking. This is not Sky Strikers, this is Traptrix. You are taking their monster. It is yours. Allomerus is a very, very good card. The problem is that it requires you to detach a material to use the effect, which is the opposite of Pinguicula. Pinguicula can use the effect essentially to recharge its materials if you want to. Whereas Allomerus, if you want to use the ability to steal monsters, you basically have to forego its other effect. And that means that it's not going to help you summon 2 Xyz monsters at the same time. So Allomerus is kind of a tricky card to use, which is fair. Traptrix are a lot like that. I don't know about this one. I definitely think Allomerus is coming, but whether it'll be good or not is another story. This will probably be a UR, and it will probably be decent. It depends on which traps we get access to besides the ones that we already have. Lastly, we have Traptrix Rafflesia. This card is insane. Okay, 2 level 4s. This card is unaffected by traps while it has Xyz materials. Traptrix monsters you control except Traptrix Rafflesia cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. This card has 2,500 defense points, by the way. Your opponent cannot target Traptrix monsters you control except Traptrix Nepenthes with card effects. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can attach 1 material from this card, send a whole normal trap that meets its activation conditions from your deck to the graveyard. This effect becomes that trap card's effect when it is activated. Wow, Rafflesia is crazy. Okay, so your monsters are unable to be destroyed, unable to be targeted, except for Rafflesia. Rafflesia is unaffected by traps, and if your opponent activates a card or summons a monster that would trigger any of the trap cards in your deck, you can attach 1 material, and you can activate that card by sending it to the graveyard. And then you can use your Traptrix monsters to set that card, or banish it to use some other effect. You get benefit from having trap cards in your graveyard. And Rafflesia lets you activate a card and send it to the graveyard. That makes your draws better, it gives you advantage in the graveyard, it gives you a crazy interaction, and it lets you play niche cards without worrying about drawing too many of them and bricking. So Rafflesia is just absurd. You remember we talked about like the chain hole where you could negate a card that was activated in response to another card? Rafflesia can do that. You can Bottomless Trap Hole when your opponent summons 4 monsters. You can Network Trap Hole if your opponent special summons from the main deck. You can do anything that you want to. This card is that good. It will just stop your opponent. What if they activate a monster effect that they special summon this turn? Mill Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. It's negated. It's destroyed. It's just so powerful. I can't stress how powerful Rafflesia is. And the problem with Rafflesia is that it has 2,500 defense points and only 300 attack points. So yes, we are going to get this card. Absolutely. This card is like the star of Traptrix. But it's not going to win you the game. It's just going to be super annoying. So the skill is basically designed to let you get, I guess, Allomerus and Rafflesia out at the same time. And if the skill is literally just Allomerus, Rafflesia, set 3, I have no idea how you're going to beat that. that is a little bit gross. So we'll have to see what cards we're getting. But I mean, it's clearly supposed to be an Xyz deck. I cannot foresee them releasing the Xyz deck without all 3 of these monsters, especially since they're denying us all 3 of these cards. So yeah, this is going to be like another Madolche situation, except that unlike Madolche's, they got a good skill. If the box has Pinguicula in it, you should absolutely go into it. If the box has Pinguicula in it, go for it. That deck will be good. I promise you. Traps are already good in Duel Links. This deck will be insane if we get Pinguicula. If we don't, then if you like Allomerus, then play Traptrix. And if you don't, then skip it. And Rafflesia, just if this card comes up, you book a minute and then you cry. Alright, the other traps that we might get. So there is a card that is not a Traptrix card, but it says Traptrick instead. This is a very powerful card, but it's actually associated with Traptrix, so it might be released now. Traptrick. A normal trap card, banish a normal trap from your deck except Traptrick, then set 1 card with the same name directly from your deck. Also, it can be activated this turn. You can only activate 1 trap card for the rest of the turn after this effect resolves, and you can only activate 1 Traptrick per turn. So this is a really interesting card. And if this card comes, it has a lot of implications for non-Traptrick decks. Traptrix doesn't really like to play Traptrick, even though it's a really good card for them. Limiting yourself to 1 trap per turn, not something they really want to do. The other thing about Traptrick is it requires you to have a empty zone, because the Traptrick will not leave the field until it's resolved, and it has to set the other card before it resolves. So you have to actually have 2 spaces on the field in your spawn trap zone, which is much rarer in Duel Links than it is in the real game. So this card probably not going to see any play at all in Traptrix, but if it comes because it's associated with Traptrix, you will probably play it in a lot of other decks as a way to get cards like Compulsory Evacuation Device or Ice Dragon's Prison. And getting access to those cards will make it a lot easier for you to play a deck. Now, you have to play 2 copies of those cards. You have to play 1 banish and 1 that you can set. but there are plenty of cards that are worth that. And I think this card will encourage people to play cards like Bottomless, Trap Hole, and Warning Point, because those are cards that are unlimited that you can run 2 or 3 copies of, and then a lot of people have 2 or 3 copies of. They become a lot better if you can just search them. So yeah, Traptrix, definitely a card I would be interested to see coming. The other Trap Hole card that I would be very interested to see coming is called Gravedigger's Trap Hole. When your opponent activates a monster effect in their hand or in the graveyard, or when your opponent's banished monster effect is activated, negate its effect, and if you do, burn your opponent for 1,000. So, we do not have enough ways to stop grave effects at this point. We just don't. A lot of our negates are for monsters that are on the field, like Clearwing Synchro Dragon. So, Gravedigger's Trap Hole being able to stop hand traps and being able to stop grave effects is very, very useful. And I feel like Traptrix is the best way to bring it to the game. So I would be interested to see this come to the game as you are. Maybe it be limited 3. I don't care if it's limited 3. It's a really good card. And I would definitely play it if it came to the game. So that's another option. Okay, that's the deck. Let me know what you guys think. My name is Seraphi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.